Across the ancient world, civilizations built on a scale that still doesn't make sense. Stones weighing over 1,000 tons, cities carved hundreds of feet underground, statues placed on remote mountain summits that are difficult to reach even today. Despite decades of study, excavation, and research, experts still can't fully explain how many of these structures were built. Some appear to require tools and techniques that, according to everything we know about the ancient world, simply shouldn't have existed, and yet they do, standing to this day, massive, precise, and deeply mysterious. In this video, we're taking a closer look at some of the most fascinating examples, each one offering a glimpse into a past that remains, in many ways, unexplained. At Baalbek in modern-day Lebanon lies one of the most staggering construction sites in human history. The Temple of Jupiter is built on a platform containing some of the largest stone blocks ever used anywhere on Earth. The famous trilithon stones alone weigh around 800 tons each, with even larger blocks discovered nearby, some estimated to exceed 1,000 tons. To put that into perspective, moving a single stone of that size today would require multiple cranes and highly specialized equipment. And yet these stones were quarried, transported, and positioned with remarkable precision thousands of years ago. The biggest mystery isn't just how they were lifted, it's how they were moved at all. Even dragging them across the ground would have required an enormous workforce, perfect coordination, and engineering techniques that remain unclear. Karnak isn't just a temple, it's a vast complex built over centuries, containing some of the most massive stone columns ever constructed. The Great Hypostyle Hall alone features 134 columns, some reaching over 20 meters in height. Each of those columns is made from enormous stone blocks, stacked and carved with intricate detail. Transporting and lifting stones of this size, then carving them so precisely, would have been an extraordinary undertaking. Even today, recreating something on this scale without modern machinery would be incredibly difficult. And yet, ancient builders achieved it thousands of years ago. High in the Peruvian Andes lies Ollantaytambo, a site that showcases some of the most impressive stonework of the Inca civilization. The massive stones used here were transported from quarries located across a river and up steep mountain terrain. Some of these blocks weigh over 50 tons, yet they were moved without wheels, metal tools, or draft animals. Even more impressive is how tightly these stones fit together, with no mortar, forming walls that have survived earthquakes for centuries. The combination of scale, transport difficulty, and precision makes Ollantaytambo one of the most puzzling construction achievements in the ancient world. Located in the ancient city of Teotihuacan, the Pyramid of the Moon is a massive structure built using millions of tons of stone and earth, constructed in stages over time. It rises prominently at the end of the Avenue of the Dead. While it may not match the Great Pyramid in height, its sheer volume and the labor required to build it are staggering. Without modern tools, constructing a platform of this scale would have required immense organization, manpower, and engineering knowledge. And yet very little is known about the people who built it, or exactly how they managed such a feat. Standing on the west bank of the Nile, the Colossi of Memnon are two towering statues that have watched over the landscape for more than 3,000 years. Each statue stands around 18 meters tall and weighs an estimated 700 tons, carved from single blocks of quartzite sandstone. What makes them particularly remarkable is not just their size, but the journey those stones took. They were quarried near modern-day Cairo, over 600 kilometers from their final location. Transporting blocks of that size across such a distance, without modern machinery, presents a challenge that is still difficult to fully explain. Even once they arrived, the task of raising them upright would have required precise coordination, immense manpower, and engineering techniques that remain uncertain. The sheer logistics involved make these statues one of the most impressive large-scale construction feats of the ancient world. The Ramesseum, the mortuary temple of Rameses II, once featured one of the largest statues ever created in ancient Egypt. Fragments of that statue remain today, but it is believed to have originally stood over 17 meters tall and weighed close to 1,000 tons. Even by modern standards, moving and erecting a single block of that size would be a monumental undertaking. Yet ancient builders not only transported this massive stone from distant quarries, they shaped it into a detailed statue and positioned it within a vast temple complex. The process would have required careful planning, an advanced understanding of balance and weight distribution, and a level of organization that is difficult to fully reconstruct. Today, the broken remains serve as a reminder of just how ambitious these ancient construction projects truly were. High on the Altiplano of Bolivia, near Lake Titicaca, lies the ancient site of Tiwanaku, a place known for its massive stone blocks and extraordinary precision. Some of these stones weigh over 100 tons and are cut with sharp angles and perfectly flat surfaces that appear almost machine-made. What makes Tiwanaku even more puzzling is its location. At an altitude of nearly 4,000 meters, transporting such heavy materials across rugged terrain would have been incredibly difficult. There is no clear evidence of how these stones were moved or shaped with such accuracy using only ancient tools. The combination of extreme altitude, massive weight, and precise craftsmanship makes Tiwanaku one of the most challenging ancient construction sites to explain. The Olmec colossal heads are among the most striking and mysterious sculptures of the ancient world. Carved from massive blocks of basalt, each head can weigh up to 50 tons and stand over 2 meters tall. What makes them particularly fascinating is the distance they were transported. The basalt used to create these heads was sourced from quarries located up to 100 kilometers away. Without the use of wheels or large animals, moving stones of this size across jungles, rivers, and uneven terrain would have been an extraordinary logistical challenge. Each head is also uniquely carved, suggesting individual craftsmanship and careful planning. The effort required to create and transport these sculptures raises serious questions about how such complex operations were organized in the ancient world. Carved directly into the cliffs of central Afghanistan, the Buddhas of Bamiyan once stood as some of the largest statues ever created. The tallest reached over 50 meters in height, towering above the surrounding valley, unlike structures built from individual blocks. These statues were carved directly out of solid rock, requiring the removal of vast amounts of material. Workers would have had to operate at significant heights, using scaffolding and basic tools to shape the stone with precision. The scale of the carving alone would have taken years, if not decades, to complete, and beyond the initial excavation, the statues were finished with intricate details and coatings that added to their complexity. Their destruction in 2001 only adds to the sense of loss, but the mystery of how they were originally created remains just as compelling. Located in Indonesia, Borobudur is one of the largest Buddhist temples ever constructed. The structure consists of multiple levels, each covered in detailed carvings and statues. The layout is highly symmetrical, forming a massive stone monument that required precise planning. Thousands of stone blocks were used, each carefully placed to create the overall design. The scale, precision, and complexity of Borobudur make it one of the most impressive ancient structures ever built, and even today, experts continue to study how it was constructed. Rising high above the surrounding landscape in Sri Lanka, Sigiriya is a massive rock fortress that appears almost impossible to build. At nearly 200 meters tall, the structure sits on top of a sheer rock column with steep sides on every edge. To reach the summit, ancient builders carved a series of narrow stairways directly into the rock. Even today, the climb is difficult, raising the question of how materials were transported to the top at all. At the summit, the remains of a palace palace can still be seen, including terraces, walls, and water features. Surrounding the base are symmetrical gardens and advanced water systems, some of which are still functional today. These features point to a level of engineering that seems far ahead of its time. How such a complex fortress was constructed on top of this isolated rock remains unclear. Discovered by accident in China, the Longyu Caves are a series of massive underground chambers carved directly into solid rock. At first glance, they appear almost too precise to be ancient. Each cave features smooth walls, evenly spaced pillars, and a consistent pattern carved across the surfaces. The level of detail suggests careful planning and execution. What makes this even more puzzling is the scale. Creating these chambers would have required removing millions of tons of stone, yet there are no clear records of who built them or why. Even more unusual is the fact that multiple caves share the same design, as if constructed using a single plan. Despite extensive research, no tools, construction methods, or historical accounts have been found to explain their origin. How these vast underground spaces were created with such precision remains a mystery. In the Saudi Arabian desert stands Al-Nasla, a massive rock formation split cleanly in two. The cut between the two halves is so straight and smooth that it appears almost artificial. The rock rests on narrow natural bases, creating a perfectly balanced structure. What makes it so unusual is the precision of the split, which looks far more exact than typical natural formations. How this formation occurred so cleanly is still debated. Carved directly into a towering cliff in Iran, Naqsh-e Rostam features a series of large tombs cut high into the rock face. The entrances are positioned far above ground level, with detailed carvings surrounding them. Creating structures at that height would have required significant effort and precision. Yet there is little evidence of how builders accessed these areas during construction. Even today, the methods used remain unclear. Located in India, Chand Baori is one of the deepest and most visually striking stepwells ever constructed. It descends over 20 meters into the ground, with thousands of perfectly aligned steps forming a geometric pattern. The symmetry is almost flawless, creating a structure that appears both functional and highly engineered. But building something this precise at such depth would have required careful planning and execution. How ancient builders achieved this level of consistency remains uncertain. There's plenty more ancient mysteries still to explore. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you want to see more ancient history content. Once the capital of the Hittite Empire, Hattusa was a vast, ancient city surrounded by massive stone walls stretching across rugged terrain in what is now Turkey. The scale of the site is immediately striking. These defensive walls were built using enormous stone blocks, some carefully shaped and fitted together with surprising precision. Several monumental gates, including the famous Lion Gate, still stand today. But what makes Hattusa so puzzling is how these massive stones were transported and positioned across such uneven ground. The terrain itself would have made construction extremely difficult. The layout of the city also suggests careful planning, with fortifications, tunnels, and structures designed for both defense and organization. Building something of this scale in such a location would have required significant coordination and engineering knowledge. How ancient builders were able to achieve this remains uncertain. Another remarkable Mayan site, Palenque, is known for its intricate architecture and detailed carvings. The structures here display a level of precision that is difficult to explain using the tools available at the time. Inside the Temple of the Inscriptions, hidden chambers and passageways reveal a complex internal design, suggesting careful planning and advanced knowledge of construction techniques. Even today, researchers continue to study how these structures were built with such accuracy. In Ethiopia, a group of churches were carved directly into solid rock, forming one of the most unique architectural sites on Earth. These structures were not built upwards. They were carved downwards into the ground. The most famous, Beit Georgis, is shaped like a cross and cut entirely from a single block of stone. The precision required to achieve this is remarkable. Even today, how these structures were created with such accuracy remains unclear. Hidden deep in the jungles of Mexico, Etzna is an ancient Mayan city known for its impressive stone structures and elevated platforms. At the center of the site stands a massive stepped pyramid rising above the surrounding landscape. What makes Etzna particularly unusual is its advanced water management system. The city features canals, reservoirs, and drainage systems that appear highly organized and efficient, suggesting a deep understanding of engineering, far beyond what is often expected for the time period. How such systems were designed and constructed remains unclear. High in the mountains of southeastern Turkey stands one of the most unusual ancient sites ever built. Mount Nemrut is crowned with enormous stone statues of gods and kings, some standing over 30 feet tall. The statues were constructed more than 2,000 years ago as part of the tomb sanctuary of King Antiochus I. But the mystery is how these massive stones were transported to such a remote mountain summit. Even today, reaching the site requires a long and difficult climb. How ancient builders managed to construct such a monumental complex at this altitude remains a subject of debate. Beneath the landscape of Cappadocia in Turkey lies an entire city, hidden underground. Derinkuyu extends more than 200 feet below the surface and once housed thousands of people. The underground complex includes living quarters, storage rooms, ventilation shafts, wells, and even places of worship. What makes it remarkable is the sheer scale of excavation. Carving an entire multi-level city from solid rock would have required enormous effort and planning. Exactly how ancient builders created such a vast subterranean network remains one of archaeology's most fascinating mysteries. Deep in the jungles of Cambodia lies Ta Prohum, one of the most visually striking temples of the ancient Khmer Empire. Unlike many nearby temples, Ta Prohum was deliberately left largely unrestored. Today, massive tree roots grow directly through the stone walls and towers. The temple was constructed in the 12th century and once served as a monastery and university. But what continues to puzzle researchers is how such enormous structures were built and maintained in dense jungle terrain, and how the complex managed to survive centuries of abandonment beneath the forest canopy. In the Ethiopian highlands stands one of Africa's most mysterious archaeological sites. The stelae at Tiya are large carved stone pillars, many decorated with unusual symbols. Some of the carvings appear to depict swords and other geometric patterns. Archaeologists believe the site may have served as an ancient burial ground, but the civilization that created these monuments left very few clues behind. Even today, the meaning of many of the carvings remains unknown. In northern Ethiopia stand towering granite monuments known as the Aksum obelisks. Some of these stone stelae rise more than 70 feet into the air and weigh hundreds of tons. They were carved from single blocks of stone and erected by the ancient kingdom of Aksum nearly 2,000 years ago. What continues to intrigue researchers is the precision of their design and the engineering required to raise them. Transporting and erecting stones of this size would have been an enormous challenge for any ancient civilization. Overlooking the ruins of Palmyra in Syria stands a dramatic hilltop fortress known as Qalat Ibn Man. From a distance, it appears almost fused with the mountain itself. The fortress was built to dominate the surrounding desert landscape and protect the ancient city below. But the steep terrain raises serious questions about how builders transported materials to such a high and isolated location. Constructing a fortress here would have required enormous effort and organization. Even today, its commanding position makes the achievement all the more impressive. Hidden in the remote valleys of western Tibet lie the ruins of Tsaparang, once the capital of the ancient Guje kingdom. The city was built directly into steep clay cliffs. Fortresses, temples, and homes were carved into the mountainside in layers. At its peak, the city controlled important trade routes across the Himalayas, but its unusual design raises questions about how such a large settlement could be constructed on such fragile terrain. Today, the ruins still cling to the cliffs, where an entire civilization once thrived. In southern Spain stand some of Europe's most impressive prehistoric burial monuments, the Antequera dolmens. These structures were built from massive stone slabs thousands of years ago. Some of the stones weigh several tons and were carefully arranged to create burial chambers. What remains uncertain is how prehistoric communities transported and positioned stones of this size in an era long before advanced tools or machinery. Yet the dolmens still stand today, silent reminders of an ancient engineering feat. In central India lies the ancient complex of Udayagiri. Here, temples and shrines were carved directly into solid rock cliffs more than 1,500 years ago. The site contains elaborate sculptures and detailed carvings that remain remarkably well preserved. But carving entire sanctuaries into rock would have required immense skill and planning. Each chamber had to be carefully shaped without damaging the surrounding stone. Even today, the precision of these ancient rock-cut structures continues to impress archaeologists. Few ancient structures are as dramatic as the temples of Abu Simbel, carved directly into a mountainside during the reign of Pharaoh Ramesses II. The temples feature colossal statues guarding the entrance, each standing over 60 feet tall. But the mystery isn't just their size. It's how ancient builders managed to carve such massive monuments into solid rock with incredible precision. The temples were also aligned so that sunlight illuminates the inner sanctuary on specific days of the year, an achievement that still fascinates archaeologists today. Carved directly into steep cliffs in what is now modern-day Turkey, the Mira rock tombs are among the most visually striking ancient burial sites ever discovered. Positioned high above the ground, embedded into sheer rock faces, these tombs were designed to resemble entire buildings, complete with columns, doorways, and detailed facades, all carved directly into the stone itself. But this raises an obvious question: how were ancient builders able to work at such heights? With that level of precision, there is little evidence of scaffolding systems capable of reaching these elevations. And yet, the carvings remain remarkably detailed and consistent. Exactly how these tombs were constructed remains unclear. Deep in the jungles of Mexico lies the ancient city of Uxmal, known for its unique architectural style and striking pyramid structures. The Pyramid of the Magician in particular stands out for its unusual shape, rising steeply with rounded edges that are rarely seen in ancient construction. The stones were carefully cut and fitted together without the use of modern tools or metal equipment. And yet, the level of craftsmanship suggests advanced planning and engineering knowledge. Even today, the exact methods used to construct Uxmal remain uncertain. Hidden deep within a curved cliff face in India, the Ajanta Caves form a complex network of temples, monasteries, and halls, all carved directly into solid rock. These structures date back over 2,000 years, yet the level of detail inside them is extraordinary. Massive pillars, intricate carvings, and large interior spaces were all created by removing rock rather than building with it. This means every mistake was permanent, requiring an incredible level of planning and precision. The layout suggests a deep understanding of symmetry and structural balance. Some chambers are perfectly aligned, with smooth surfaces and detailed artwork that has survived for centuries. How ancient builders achieved this level of accuracy using only basic tools is still debated. Located in Indonesia, Gunung Padang is a site that has sparked intense debate among researchers. At first glance, it appears to be a simple hill covered in stone formations, but studies have suggested that beneath the surface may lie multiple layers of hidden structures. Some researchers believe parts of the site could be far older than previously thought, possibly dating back tens of thousands of years. If this is true, it would challenge our entire understanding of early human civilization, because it would suggest that advanced construction techniques existed far earlier than expected. Another site famous for its enormous stone walls raises questions that researchers still haven't resolved. Some blocks weigh over 100 tons, and yet they fit together perfectly without the use of mortar. The joints are so tight that even a thin blade cannot pass between them. Each stone has been shaped individually to fit its neighbors, creating a complex interlocking pattern. But how this was achieved without modern tools remains unclear. The level of precision seen here continues to challenge modern understanding. Built directly into the side of a cliff in China, the Hanging Temple appears to defy both gravity and logic. Suspended hundreds of feet above the ground, the structure is supported by wooden beams embedded into the rock face. At first glance, it looks fragile, almost as if it shouldn't be able to support its own weight, and yet it has remained standing for over 1,000 years. The placement of the beams, combined with the distribution of weight, suggests a deep understanding of balance and structural engineering. But exactly how that knowledge was developed at the time is unclear. Even today, constructing something similar in such a location would be extremely difficult. Rising high above the surrounding desert, Masada is an ancient fortress built on top of a massive plateau. The location alone is extreme, with steep cliffs on all sides making access incredibly difficult. Despite this, the site contains extensive construction, including walls, storage facilities, water systems, and even palace structures. Transporting the necessary materials to such a height would have required significant effort and coordination. Large quantities of stone, wood, and other resources had to be moved up the mountain long before modern transportation existed. And yet, the structures remain remarkably well preserved. How such a large-scale project was completed in such a challenging environment is still not fully understood. Built on a series of artificial islands in the Pacific Ocean, Nan Madol is one of the most unusual ancient cities in the world. The site consists of large stone structures connected by canals, giving it the appearance of a floating city. Massive basalt stones were used in construction, some weighing several tons, but there is a major problem. There are no natural sources of these stones nearby. This means they had to be transported across water, with no clear explanation of how this was achieved. Even today, moving stones of this size would require significant effort. How Nan Madol was constructed in such a remote location remains one of archaeology's biggest mysteries. The Great Pyramid is perhaps the most famous ancient structure in the world, but its scale is still often underestimated. It's made up of roughly 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing several tons, with some internal granite beams weighing up to 80 tons. Constructed over 4,500 years ago, it remained the tallest man-made structure on Earth for nearly 4,000 years. What makes it even more remarkable is its precision, aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, with its base level to within a fraction of a degree. But the real question remains, how were millions of heavy stones lifted into place? Ramps, levers, and manpower are often suggested, but no definitive method has ever been proven. Even after centuries of study, excavation, and debate, many of these ancient structures continue to defy clear explanation. They stand as lasting reminders of what was achieved in the distant past, using methods, tools, and knowledge that are still not fully understood today. Whether the answers have been lost to time or are still waiting to be uncovered, these sites continue to challenge what we think we know about ancient civilizations, and perhaps that's what makes them so fascinating.